The Spike Week crew is through 10 rounds, half of our draft in a DraftKings $555 best ball tournament draft, $1 million to first place. We are drafting a monster squad so far. Make sure you check back for the first 5 installments of this video series where we draft those first 10 picks. And today we're going to get into round 11 and round 12 as we continue our march toward $1 million on DraftKings. Let's do it.
3, 2, 1, liftoff.
All right, guys, we are back on the clock, round 11. And as we continue to mention on just about every single one of these videos, this draft is going well. I'm very excited about this team. We've now reached the point, however, where you start to almost get nervous and be like, on a positive note, we have both of our quarterbacks, and that's a lot of the times the thing you get nervous about. You're like, this team is so perfect. Got to make sure, I've built out this, right? I built out the 49er stack or whatever, and I got to make sure I get Purdy, and it gets a little nerve-wracking. We're in a little bit better situation, but you do start to be like, let's land this plane, baby. Let's make sure we don't screw this one up because it's going really well. If you're tuning in for the first time, this is the 6th video in a probably 10-part series where we are recording our discussion strategy analysis for every pick we kind of make at the turn. We drafted out of the 108, and so we're drafting 2 picks in one on each video. And you can check the link in the description to find all of the past videos. Really quickly, as we head into the 11th round, I'm going to reread off our team thus far. Actually, we'll go ahead and bring up the board, and we can read it off there. We started again out of the 108 with Tyreek Hill. Shout out to this room for giving us Tyreek Hill at the 108. Come back and take Garrett Wilson in the 2nd round. Take Garrett Wilson's teammate, Breece Hall, in the 3rd round, which, really quick side note, really happy with that we took Breece and got out ahead of, we made that pick kind of before all the running back drama, before all the, Lenny and or Dalvin and all this chaos in New England. And Breece goes from the injured guy in the 3rd round that everyone's worried about to like the safe pick in the 3rd round. It's very strange how that has turned since we made that pick. Deebo Samuel falls all the way back to us in the 4th round. Then we take Justin Fields, who also fell about a round past ADP in the 5th round. I keep calling Kadarius Toney our home run swing there in the 6th round at wide receiver. Darren Waller as our elite tight end in the 7th. Jahan Dotson to continue to build out our wide receiver room in the 8th. Tua to stack with Tyreek Hill in the 9th round, falls 20 picks past ADP. And then a really good discussion. Go back and listen to the last video where we decide on how we landed on AJ Dillon and how he might actually be a little bit underrated this season as our running back too. So we are on the clock here in the 11th round. We've discussed up until this point how we are pretty flexible, but we are also in a running back pocket of the draft where we definitely need some running backs and we need some running back firepower. And it's probably, kind of the best position that is on the board thus far. So let's run through each one of you guys really quickly and just kind of give your takes on where we stand and what you're thinking about here in this range. B. Kurt, go ahead.
First thing that jumps out to me is if I'm getting Tua Tagovailoa within 4 picks of Cousins and 8 picks of Geno, that's a good thing. The other thing that happened since we picked Dylan, it looks like A-Chain does go to Cheez-Its over in the 1 hole to kind of fill out the Baltimore-Miami stack he had going. So that's kind of a bummer to where we're coming back, but there's still some other running backs on the board.
Trev?
So as I was saying to no one before, we only saw 3 running backs go off the board in this range where we love smashing the running back position and we like all these guys. So I mean that's just a great omen as we have 5 receivers in the juicy portion of the draft, I like to call it, and so we're just looking to keep pounding.
Do you wear those pants or shorts with the juicy across the butt?
Oh yeah,
on DraftKings
all the time.
Only when we get to this part of the draft.
I'm surprised you guys are even wearing pants because typically my pants are off at this point of the draft. Come on
If we get this, well, technically they can't see all of our pants, so I don't know if that's good or bad. We probably shouldn't get into that part of best ball draft strategy. But Silas, what are you thinking here?
Yeah, so the running backs are typical targets, especially for hero and zero RB builds. We only have 2 running backs through 10 rounds, which kind of seems like we should start hammering it. The only kind of pivot I would make would be we do have an unstacked Fields. Mooney's one of those guys that's really interesting to me. I think he's very, very talented. And last year, obviously, we saw it 2 years ago. He pretty much broke out. Last year, he was a little underwhelming. I think that's just because the offensive line was terrible, right? They've definitely heavily invested in the offensive line. Fields has taken another step forward as a passer and as a quarterback overall. We could see him, even though they did bring in DJ Moore, kind of be that like 1B to DJ Moore's 1A. He's used all over the field. There's not really a route that Darnell Mooney can't run, and he's super fast. So there are literal weeks where he might catch a 70, 75-yard bomb. So he's the only wide receiver I would think about taking a detour at. It would put us at 6, so we can kind of really punt off and really grab a lot of the running backs that we like. And kind of looking at who's behind us, I mean, they all have at least 3, with Two Gun having 5. So they're kind of going to be probably leaning towards wide receivers here. So if we wanted to pair up Fields, that would be one way to go about it. Otherwise, I absolutely love the running backs. Like, you can't get wrong about Penny and Dame.
I agree. Can you go to the player board just to kind of see who the top available players are by ADP? Can you look at wide receiver first, actually, just to kind of discuss that Mooney point? So he is 147 by ADP, and we are at pick 128. So that's one thing. So 2 parts. Mooney also feels like a guy who could be a faller to me. I mean, if Justin Fields is falling, DJ Moore, has fallen by ADP over the course of the summer. I think everybody is very worried about the pass volume for the Bears. I'm not saying that we're going to start planning ahead 3 rounds from now or whatever, but if there's a guy who falls from, right, we'll be up again at pick like 136 or the 137, something like that. If he were to fall past ADP, I would not be super surprised. And but I do certainly like the stacking part with Justin Fields. Only other counterpoint would be, we definitely want stacking. We definitely want, I absolutely want to stack Justin Fields. But in terms of prioritizing it over the running backs, if something were to happen and we just had to, Cole Kmet is going to be available to us, and we do need another tight end, which would be a nice stack for Fields. And if we didn't get, someone to stack with Fields, it is not the absolute end of the world, I don't think, in this particular tournament, right? So we advance 2 out of 12. Which, of course, you don't necessarily have to have a stack with Justin Fields, although I want one to advance out of there. And then really small groups in weeks 15 and 16, right? 6-team group, 5-team group. And then even in a 25-team final, of course, you want it if Mooney has a big game. That's huge. You can win the 2019 final. So I want the stack, but prioritizing it over certain guys is just a little bit tougher for me, and I just can't get away from this freaking running back range. I think if a lot of these guys were gone, I might be just like, let's just take Mooney and see what happens at running back. But this running back range is so strong, and we are obviously in need of some running back firepower. So I'm gonna go back to Silas. Let's talk about the running backs. Who are your favorites amongst this group that's available to us?
So I like everyone from Penny down to Algier. Like, you can't, like, they're all my highest owned specific. I typically play on underdog. Like, they're right up there on top of my highest owned. In terms of this being full PPR, it kind of sways me a little bit away from Damian Harris. I'm a Patriots fan. I've watched way too many Patriots games. The man has friggin' brick for hands. We're not going to see the Bills throwing him the football, even if he's going to have a crap ton of high value touches. So I would actually be leaning towards Penny here, just because we have seen him kind of used as a 3-down back. I mean, he wasn't really a prolific pass catcher for the Seahawks, but the Eagles, man, they find creative ways to use players that you don't expect them to in pretty dynamic ways.
I'm absolutely 1,000% P Ryan here personally. He may not have the most upside. We don't know how they're going to use him, but to go from the Bengals to the 5-12 Broncos, Sean Payton had to be whispering sweet nothings into his ear. I don't know how that happened, but they have a plan to use him. I think he's 2.5 rounds past ADP. Even if Javonte is healthy, it could be a Dobbins situation where Dobbins was healthy and then he barely played during the season. I think P Ryan, with or without Javonte missing the beginning of the season, he's going to be in games. Maybe not too much, but they're gonna be using him. I see no other reason why he would leave the Bengals for Denver.
What do you think, B. Kurt?
This is my one player take that I have. I'm mostly all roster construction. Whoever's there fits. My one player take is Rashad Penny is a top 5 running back in this league. If we just watch these dudes play running back, he's so immensely more talented than any of these other players on the board. I don't even think it's close. Now, why is he going here? There's a lot of risk. There's the contract bros will tell you that he didn't sign for very much and different things like that. So that pushes him down here. But I'm thinking in this build factor, anchor RB, if I can get 5 weeks out of Rashad Penny and maybe 2 or 3 of them are in the playoffs that just explode, that's how you win $1 million on DraftKings.com. Fun fact about Rashad Penny, in his last 10 games, 5 of them have been top 10 performances. 50% of the time in the last 10 games, he's a top 10 running back in the league.
On the Seahawks, last year they had Ken Walker, who emerges. So he's good enough with other good players around him to still put up big performances. On the Seattle offense is fine. I'm not saying it's, and with Russ and Geno stepped in and it's been good, certainly above average. The Eagles offense is a little bit of a different beast. Whoever runs the ball for the Eagles is going to be efficient. They're going to score fantasy points and they're going to score touchdowns. Miles Sanders, we were kind of joking about Miles Sanders in the Spike Week Discord, which there's a link to in the description. It's totally free if you're hanging out drafting best ball teams. People are in there 24/7, 365 talking, so make sure to hop in there. But basically, Miles Sanders is fine as a football player. He's certainly not a big difference maker. And Miles Sanders, I think, was my highest exposed running back last year. I wish I would have put a little of that onto Josh Jacobs or maybe paired them up together. That would have been sweet. But Miles Sanders was a monster hit, despite the fact that he's good, not great for the Eagles, right? Kenny Gainwell comes in there and poof, random 2 touchdown games. Boston Scott running for 100 yards against the Giants in a half. This role is so valuable for players who are not even that good at football. And now you put Rashad Penny, one of the best pure rushers in the league, with Jalen Hurts behind an elite offensive line with a great defense that's going to give them positive game scripts all the time. I understand all the potential uncertainty around him, but I have him ranked ahead of P Ryan. And so I know that P Ryan is the bigger ADP value, but it's also hard for me to say the thing that we're probably talk about is, okay, who might get back to us, right? Out of this group, it's hard for me to say I would rather risk losing Penny because he might be a little more likely to get back to us when I just think you want to talk about winning $1 million with a player. I think P Ryan can be helpful to get you there 100%. But if there's a guy who wins it for you, it's Rashad Penny to me. And so he's who I would probably pound the table for here. Obviously, I love Damian Harris too. And I think that there's a case for P Ryan. I will say I think it's those 3 that would be in the conversation for me. So if ultimately the vote went against Penny, I'd be down for that. But I just think, man, you want to talk about a scenario where this guy wins you, some player wins you a league, in the 11th round. I don't know that there's any better example of it than Rashad Penny. And the only reason we're getting him at this price is I honestly, I don't actually really know. I don't know why Swift is assumed to be going so much higher when like he doesn't really fit what the Eagles do. And so it just seems like we want to talk about swinging for a home run with Kadarius Toney. This is the wide receiver version of this is this is the running back version of the Kadarius Toney thing, except we get it in the 11th round. So that's kind of my take for Penny. Let's go back around since me and B. Kurt just made our Penny stances. Silas, what do you think about kind of Penny versus the rest of this group?
Yeah, I mean, I said Penny's my guy. If we were looking at running back here, I've basically made my case against Pirine, where I think Javonte is going to be healthy, and I think he's a dynamic player. So even though Sean Payton brought him in, like you're not going to let a talent like Javonte off the field, especially later on. Like I get he's probably a week towards, he's a play for week 1 in the early part of the season, which we could use some points, but I don't think it's absolutely in dire need, especially if Brees is healthy.
And it doesn't mean that Rashad Penny isn't a play towards week 1. We're making that case for Pirine, and I don't think it's wrong. He's going to have a role, 100%. He's going to have a role, possibly a high value role, but it doesn't mean just because he has that, it doesn't mean other backs don't. Trev, I know you were the Pirine guy. Let's hear either. Are we swaying you, or are you going to pound the table for Pirine, or just what are you thinking?
No, you're definitely swaying me. I love Penny as well. I just think the chances of them being like the lead guy, not even like a full workhorse, but I think through the Jalen Hurts and they've always had a like committee at running back, like, and I think Penny's probably better than anyone they've had on their roster the past couple of years. But I think just the odds of having that lead role through injury and like recovery for Pirine and how they want to use him, and just the situation with the Eagles and Penny coming back from injury, I think it's pretty similar. And I think Pirine has the slightly higher floor, even though Penny definitely has that ceiling where it's like they have that O-line, they have that amazing offense. So that's why I was personally Pirine. But I see Penny, and he could 100% just smash in any week against the Cardinals in week 17. It could be absolutely disgusting just watching what he does to that defense. So I'm not, with all three of you guys going for it, I'm not gonna hold you back. I still love Penny. So let's do it. I'm fine with it.
Also, I mean, Pirine just keeps on falling. Silas made the case as to why all these guys behind us have a shit ton of running backs already. Who's to say all these running backs don't keep falling, including him? I'm certainly not expecting it, but it's possible we come back on the clock and the next pick, and we're like, well, we have to talk about the same running backs except Penny, just like we talked about last time. I don't think it's crazy. I think just to put a bow on it, Pirine seemingly has a better path to kind of the workhorse thing, but also Sean Payton hasn't ever really liked to do that. I think Pirine's a little different archetype maybe than they've kind of had before, but Sean Payton is a little bit more of, he does like to outcoach people, move guys around, play different personnel packages, play multiple different backs. And I think that's why they brought Pirine in, is because he's about as sturdy as it comes as an NFL running back. He's not amazing. He's going to get the yards that are blocked for you. He's going to pass protect. He's going to catch the ball out of the backfield. He's going to do the things that they need. But I don't think that it necessarily means that he is some awesome bet relative to other running backs to like be a total dominant workhorse. He is going to catch more passes than Rashad Penny. I'll make that bet right now. That's pretty much a lock. And so that is very helpful on DraftKings. But in terms of like Rashad Penny, like can lead the league in rushing. I fully believe like Rashad Penny is probably one of the better bets to lead the league in rushing, which sounds crazy, but like all he has to do is get the early down work, and he's probably like a top 5 bet to lead the league in rushing. He's got to get that role, but like once that happens, dude, this guy should be going where Najee and Etienne and Miles Sanders and Mixon and those guys go, because I just think the upside is that amazing. So I'll just open the floor really quickly before we sign off and make the Rashad Penny pick. Anything else you guys want to add to this 11th round discussion?
Yeah, last thing for Rashad Penny. We're going to see that the Eagles are not going to want to rush Hurts, 400 times and just throw him into the line. So why wouldn't you grab a guy that's uber talented and start giving him those high value touches? Because guess what? They're replaceable. Jalen Hurts, not replaceable.
That is true. Anything else, guys?
No,
I was just going to say that. Oh, go ahead, Trev.
Oh, I was going to say, just once again, it's just one of these spots where it's like, yeah, we like the running back share, and it's like, oh, okay, like they're just all falling to us in this perfect pocket. So no complaints, just teams getting better and better.
My last point is like there's 4 correct picks here. We're just picking one of the correct picks. I think you could honestly do multiple of these guys and be fine, which makes me really excited to come back in the 12th, and let's hope one of them is still there. And then we're just like winning again and again and again and again on this team.
Yep, I love it. It goes back to our structure conversation and kind of knowing the pockets of the draft and all of that. It has worked out really well. We will probably just be back after a little mini break here to make our second pick at this turn in the DraftKings $555 best ball tournament, where we are en route to $1 million.
Right, so we are back for our 12th round pick. In a 555 DK best ball tournament. Bernie, Trev, how we doing?
Good.
Doing great, just let's land this plane, let's get this money, win the tournament, I'm ready.
So for the audio listeners, if you haven't been watching, we have already recorded our first 10 picks. This will be our 11th and 12th. Already recorded 11. So yeah, check out those videos in YouTube, subscribe, get notifications so that you can follow up with the rest of the draft. And yeah, so to the turn, we can pull up the draft board. So obviously we just picked Rashad Penny, talked that through. We did see Damian Harris and Samaje Perine go off the board, RIP in peace. Did see a couple of tight ends, a couple of wide receivers, and also Jaylen Warren. So with our structure right now, obviously we're not thinking about quarterback here. Probably looking at either running back or wide receiver. I know Darnell Mooney's still there. Cole Kmet's there. We'll kick it off with Trev. Who are you particularly looking at here?
I'm huge on Eli Mitchell this year. I was going to try and fight for him over Damian Harris. It probably would have gone terribly, just like me trying to go for Perine. But I think it's such an easy click right here. We already have our bet on the 49ers with Debo. We have Dotson for the week 17. And I think with the combination of Mitchell and Debo, it's like if CMC goes down, you're winning with both of those guys. They're both going to be in the backfield more, not only getting like the handoffs, but like Debo can pick up a lot of that short yardage passing game work that CMC is amazing at. So I think it's like a super easy click, and it just, if something happens to CMC, they're both going to absolutely go off. And even if CMC doesn't go down, Mitchell is getting like 10, 12 carries in those games with him early on.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And I mean, when Eli, and right after they traded for CMC, Eli Mitchell was involved pretty heavily. It was more of like a 50-50, 60-40 mix. He's going to have value from day one. And if CMC does go down, we know Shanahan trusts him to kind of take over as a 3-down back. So, definitely think he's a good pick here. Bernie?
So I absolutely 100% agree with Eli Mitchell, but I think there's kind of 2 other things we need to consider before we lock it in. I'm very in Eli Mitchell bucket. One of the reasons why is, what Trev mentioned, but also the 49ers actually have the worst rest differential in the league this year. They have 20 less rest days than their opponents. Not a huge stat people consider, but, they have less rest than their opponents. What position might benefit from that? Running back. Not to say it's a stat we need to live and die by or whatnot, but it's interesting and it's something for us to consider. The two things that I think we also need to consider are there's a couple Chicago pass catchers. I'm not pro them with this pick, but they're out there. They're in this range, something for us to consider. I like solidifying our running back with the anchor RB build. Then the other thing I think we need to consider is, well, if we're in running back, there's a running back with a much lower ADP than Mitchell sitting on the board.
Yeah,
I'm not Jamal guy, but should we take 30 seconds to make the case?
I really struggled to see the case for Jamal. Like, they just brought in a pretty good rookie in Kendre. Kamara doesn't seem like he's going to get suspended for that long. I mean, yeah, he did get a boatload of money and just scored, 18 touchdowns for the Lions. And that offense is probably going to be good, right? It's probably going to be good, which leads to high value touches. But how many carries do we think he's actually going to get from the 1 yard line this year? Is he going to get 30 carries again? That seems very, very unlikely. Like, he's a major regression candidate in terms of touchdowns, and he's not really going to provide anything outside of touchdowns.
Well, that's the interesting part of Jamal Williams to me is how is New Orleans actually going to use them? Are they going to use him like Detroit used him? Or is New Orleans going to use him more like the Packers used him in the start of his career, where the Packers mixed in goal line work, but he also caught quite a lot of passes for the Packers. In Detroit, they just bucketed him into not that role, and that's the Swift role. How is New Orleans going to use him is quite interesting to me. I just love the price on Kendre way more than Jamal. So I looked at my exposures before I made this case because I was like, I should actually give this context. I had 25% Kendre, 1% Jamal. So like I prefer just kind of the cheaper option. And now Kendre is way falling since he has the out tag. But I think it's at least a consideration.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate it. I mean, I'm personally more on Kamara, especially after this kind of quasi-resolution where it is a misdemeanor. He's not gonna, he's not facing any time for any legal sanctions. Probably still going to result in a suspension, but 2 to 4 games, not too crazy. And we know what Kamara can do in terms of a ceiling. Even though he is getting up there in age. Jamal, very similar. He's getting up there in age. Yeah, I think I could see them actually using him in the passing game, but I kind of feel like they paid him a boatload of money just to kind of have that, backup plan for if Kamara got, some significant suspension or even jail time.
Yeah,
maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm thinking about it differently.
It's hard to paint a picture where he really how old's Jamal? Like he's 28 at this point, 27, somewhere around
28,
there.
28, yeah.
28, yeah. It's hard to paint a picture where he has more than just like a couple weeks where it's like, oh, he got 2 touchdowns from the one. You could look at Derek Carr historically being like really bad in the red zone, and that could either be a pro or a con, right? It's like, well, this guy isn't throwing for touchdowns inside the 20. Let's hand it off. But it's also like, who knows? So I don't think there's that much upside compared to someone like Mitchell. We have the correlation, and it's just like, it's not a sexy pick. Come on now. Like, let's be real.
Yeah. And kind of going off that, I feel like, you brought up the structure argument earlier. He doesn't really feel like he fits the structure. He doesn't have significant end of season upside, with a relatively young rookie. Typically rookies break out in the second half of the season. With Kamara, it's a 3-headed backfield. Like, yeah, he might score some touchdowns, but you're really just hoping he falls into the end zone twice. And is he going to have 8 yards for 6 carries for 8 yards and 2 touchdowns? Like, that's probably not cracking your lineup and helping you to win the million, in my opinion. Mitchell obviously has serious, significant upside and contingency value if CMC goes down. The only other guy I would potentially bring up and who I'm very heavily invested in, so bear this in mind, is Tyler Algier. I think it's a very similar situation to Eli Mitchell. I think he's going to be utilized a hell of a lot more than people are realizing. I don't think Arthur Smith is going to use one back. We kind of saw that with Cordell Patterson last year. Algier kind of took over towards the end of the year, but he is only a second-year player. And if anything happens to Bijan, sky's the limit on an offense that could actually be great and good.
So I love Algier. I think you're spot on with the markets slower and less on him than they should be. If I'm personally drafting, I'm like hoping Algier gets back to our next pick. So let's please not release this video before then. Because I love what Algier brings to the table from a standalone and a contingent perspective, especially on this team. So I'm with you, Silas. I think he's a great pick in this range. I'm Mitchell because I think Mitchell's a little bit better of a pick at this spot and with the ADP differences, like the hope. But I can't make a case against Algier.
Yeah,
Do you have any thoughts?
I love Algier as well. I think their situations are really similar as well. I'm just thinking on better offense. The lead RB is older and has a lot more wear than Bijan does, so he's probably more likely to go down or get injured. And I just think he's burstier. He can actually have spike weeks on weeks where CMC's playing. He could bust off like a 30-yard touchdown and maybe catch a pass or two. I don't know why he would, but I think he just has more upside in general, and I don't really see a tiebreaker other than like there's slightly more correlation because it's our quarterback, but I think overall Eli Mitchell is just like a better version of Algier.
Yeah, so that's actually a good point. One thing that I was going to bring up, so we already have Debo, right? And we already have Dotson as kind of like a little mini correlation. Do we think Elijah Mitchell provides enough leverage off the passing game to kind of make him the pick compared to, if Algier runs for 2 touchdowns and is kind of running out the clock, that means Fields is kind of throwing wild and running all over the place in week 17. Like that could be the little mini that we need. So does anyone think that the leverage that Mitchell kind of accounts towards against the passing game oversets the value of Algier does to our quarterback? And does that question make sense?
I know what you're saying. Yeah, I think especially with how the Niners offense is, if CMC does go down, we could also, I think Mitchell also gives us that chance to have the like ping pong effect where, against Arizona, he goes off. Against Baltimore, it's more of a shootout. Debo goes off, and then week 17, he goes off again against Washington. I could see that situation play out where it's the offense on Atlanta. I think they're going to be good. I really like Atlanta, and it's hard to be worse than they were last season with Mariota. But I'd rather bet on a team with like a 11.5 win total or wherever they're at versus Atlanta, which is kind of, I don't know where they're at, 6.5 maybe.
Ernie, any thoughts?
So your question made absolute sense. It goes like that extra layer deep than I kind of care to when I'm on the clock. Not saying like it's a bad thing. It might totally be something that other people really want to consider, where I'm like, I want to build a solid team, sun run at the end, that type of deal. It makes sense. I just think Eli Mitchell has a better chance of being a good player down the run, and that's really the tiebreaker for me. Is like I want them both on my teams. I think Eli Mitchell has just that little bit increased chance.
And I think we've seen.
Will it help you guys if I come in and read to you the thoughts of Eric Beimfor as acted by me, Rob Coakley, as Eric Beimfor?
I need it.
All right. Yeah. All right. Eli Mitchell is my guy here. The contingent upside is one of the best in the league. And I think he'll have a role alongside CMC regardless. Obviously, RB is our weakest position, so it fits the need. And he's my highest ranked player here. And the only guys, right, who stand out are his stacking partners for Fields and the Bears. But their ADPs are much lower. And I think it's possible that one of them might fall. So Eli Mitchell is my guy. This has been Eric Beimfor.
Drops the mic. All right.
That was easy.
So All right, so obviously by 4 is Eli Mitchell. Trev.
Yeah, I had one last argument to kind of we've seen Mitchell also in that rookie year get like 25, 27 carries in games. And even last year, I forget who the other running backs were in Atlanta. They were nameless, but they were getting like 10, 11 carries a game. It's just, I think Mitchell just has more upside, has a higher floor. I think it's not, I think the correlation could be a tiebreaker, but I don't think it's a tie between the two of them. I think Mitchell's like a little tier above.
Cool. Bernie.
Let's press the button for Mitchell.
All right. And we are in. I'm going to run through the board, run through our team real quick for any of our audio listeners. So Justin Fields, Breece Hall, A.J. Dillon, Tyreek Hill, Garrett Wilson, Deebo Samuel, Darren Waller, Kadarius Toney, Jahan Dotson, Tua Tagovailoa, Rashad Penny, and Eli Mitchell. So currently rocking a 2-4-5-1 through 12 rounds. Hopefully, I honestly think this team is absolutely fantastic. It's exactly what we kind of anticipated, other than, all the falls that we've gotten. Structure's right in line with what we normally do. Definitely have a unique combo. Definitely in line to win potentially $1 million, and probably $2 million when we get that the Tournament of Champions ticket. So yeah, I'm loving this team. Any last comments, concerns, things you want to add, Trev?
You nailed it for the most part. I think we can just go and just keep doing what we've been doing. Get the best picks, and everything's fallen into our lap over and over. There's a few guys like Damian Harris. We didn't get T in the 3rd round as a massive faller, but there's not really been any picks where I'm like, damn, like how the board fell afterwards. I wish we did this instead. I think that happens a lot in drafts, but that hasn't happened once for us.
Ernie?
Yeah, I just think it's great that Rob showed up to be Eric, because Eric was like, oh man, we didn't get Damian Harris. I'm not showing up to that recording. But on a serious note, so when we come back on the 13th, what I'm really hoping gets there, since we hopefully won't release this before then, is I want Tank, Algier, or Darnell Mooney, or Cole Kmet. Like, I'm kind of targeting one of those 4 players coming back to us, hoping one of them makes it and makes that next pick really easy in my mind. Obviously, you guys can sway me wherever we want, and we can make a group decision otherwise, but those would be like my 4 target candidates. And we already see Jamal is off the board. Thank you, somebody, for taking that bullet for us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I'll be looking probably at one of the pass catchers, just because I think, it's probably time to start landing this plane. 4 straight running backs and having 5 in a row, matching it with wide receiver. I like some of the late guys. But we'll be back on the clock pretty quickly. This draft has definitely not really been a slow draft. It's been pretty brutal. So we will be back soon. For all of you, like, subscribe, follow us on Twitter, and that's it. Peace.
Woo! Those were some spicy takes. Want to stay up to date with all of the other spicy takes we're going to have over here at Spike Week? Why don't you press that subscribe button below? You turn notifications on, we draft a team, boom, you know about it. We have another spicy take, boom, you know about it. You can be there. You can draft with us. You want to stay up to date? That's how you do it. All right, we'll catch you later next time here at Spike Week.